A world divided. The aftermath of World War II. The year was 1945. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, had finally come to an end. Cities lay in ruins, millions were dead, the world yearned for peace, but a new struggle was already beginning. This was the dawn of the Cold War. The war had left behind a power vacuum. Two nations emerged from the conflict as dominant forces, the United States and the Soviet Union. The US, with its booming economy and atomic bomb, stood as a beacon of capitalism and democracy. The Soviet Union, having sacrificed millions to defeat Nazi Germany, commanded the largest army in the world and sought to spread its communist ideology. These two superpowers, once allies against fascism, now viewed each other with suspicion and fear. Their differences, political, economic, and ideological, were stark. The stage was set for a global confrontation unlike any before. This was not a war of tanks and trenches, but a war of ideas, of espionage, of proxy conflicts fought on distant battlefields. This was the Cold War. Superpowers rise, the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States emerged from World War II economically and militarily powerful. Its industries, untouched by the ravages of war, were producing at an unprecedented rate. The US dollar became the world's reserve currency. Its military might, bolstered by the atomic bomb, was unmatched. The Soviet Union, while victorious, emerged from the war deeply scarred. Millions of its citizens lay dead. Its industries were in ruins. Yet the Soviet Union had rebuilt itself before, and under the leadership of Joseph Stalin it would do so again. The Soviet Union possessed a powerful military force, hardened by years of brutal conflict. It had also expanded its territory, establishing communist governments in Eastern Europe. The two superpowers eyed each other warily across a divided Europe. The US, committed to containing the spread of communism, implemented the Marshall Plan, providing billions in aid to rebuild Western Europe. The Soviet Union, seeking to protect itself from what it perceived as Western aggression, established the Warsaw Pact, a military alliance of communist nations. The lines were drawn, the Cold War had begun. Ideological divide: capitalism versus communism. This divide was not just a political or economic disagreement, but a profound clash of worldviews that shaped the 20th century. At the heart of the Cold War lay a fundamental clash of ideologies: capitalism versus communism. This conflict influenced global politics, economics, and even culture, creating a world divided into two camps. The United States championed capitalism, a system that emphasized individual liberty, free markets, and democratic values. It was a system where success was often measured by economic prosperity and personal freedom. In the American vision, individuals were free to pursue their own economic interests, and the government's role was limited to protecting those freedoms. This vision was embodied in the American dream, where anyone could achieve success through hard work and determination. The Soviet Union, in stark contrast, adhered to communism, an ideology that called for the abolition of private property and the establishment of a classless society. This was seen as a way to eliminate inequality and ensure that all citizens had their basic needs met. In the communist vision, the means of production would be owned and controlled by the state, ensuring equality for all. This was intended to create a society where wealth and resources were distributed according to need, rather than market forces. The Soviet Union, having undergone a communist revolution in 1917, saw itself as the vanguard of this global movement. It aimed to spread communism worldwide, believing it to be the path to true social justice and equality. These two ideologies, diametrically opposed, fueled the mistrust and animosity between the two superpowers. The competition extended to every sphere of influence, from military might to technological advancements, and even to space exploration. The United States saw communism as inherently expansionist, a threat to freedom and democracy around the world. This perception led to numerous policies aimed at containing the spread of communism, including military interventions and alliances. The Soviet Union, for its part, viewed capitalism as inherently exploitative, a system that benefited the few at the expense of the many. It believed that capitalism led to social inequality and economic crises, which could only be resolved through a communist system. This ideological divide would shape every aspect of the Cold War, from the proxy wars fought in Korea and Vietnam to the nuclear arms race that threatened to destroy the world. The struggle between these two systems defined an era, leaving a lasting impact on global history. Section 4 Battlegrounds of Ideology Proxy Wars. The Cold War was a global conflict, but it was rarely a direct one. Instead of engaging in open warfare, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a series of indirect confrontations. The United States and the Soviet Union avoided direct military confrontation, knowing that a war between nuclear-armed superpowers would be catastrophic. The threat of mutual assured destruction loomed large over every decision. Instead, they waged their ideological struggle through proxy wars, conflicts fought in third countries where each superpower supported its respective allies. These proxy wars became the battlegrounds where the Cold War turned hot. One of the first and most brutal of these proxy wars was the Korean War, from 1950 to 1953. This conflict set the stage for many others that would follow. When Communist North Korea invaded South Korea, the United States intervened militarily, supporting the South. This intervention was seen as a necessary step to contain the spread of communism in Asia. The Soviet Union and China, in turn, provided support to the North. This external support turned the Korean peninsula into a fierce battleground of ideologies. The Korean War ended in a stalemate, but it solidified the Cold War division of the Korean peninsula and demonstrated the willingness of the superpowers to use military force to contain each other's influence. The armistice left Korea divided along the 38th parallel, a division that persists to this day. The Vietnam War, from 1954 to 1975, was another tragic chapter in the Cold War. This conflict was marked by its length and the heavy toll it took on both the Vietnamese people and American soldiers. The United States intervened in Vietnam to prevent the communist North Vietnamese from taking over the South. This intervention was part of the broader strategy of containment. The war escalated into a protracted and bloody conflict, with the United States facing fierce resistance from the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong. The dense jungles and guerrilla tactics made the war particularly challenging. The Vietnam War had a profound impact on American society, fueling anti-war sentiment and raising questions about the limits of American power. The war's unpopularity led to widespread protests and a re-evaluation of U.S. foreign policy. Section 5, The Nuclear Threat, A Race Against Annihilation. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Cold War was the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. The United States, having developed the first atomic bombs during World War II, initially held a monopoly on nuclear weapons. However, the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb in 1949, shattering the American monopoly and ushering in an era of nuclear proliferation. Both superpowers engaged in a frantic arms race, building larger and more powerful nuclear arsenals. The United States developed the hydrogen bomb, a weapon far more destructive than the atomic bombs dropped on Japan. The Soviet Union soon followed suit, testing its own hydrogen bomb in 1953. The world watched in horror as the superpowers amassed arsenals capable of destroying all life on Earth many times over. The nuclear arms race had a profound impact on the Cold War. The knowledge that any conflict could escalate into a nuclear holocaust had a sobering effect on both sides, encouraging caution and restraint. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, emerged, a chilling logic that argued that neither superpower would risk a nuclear attack, knowing that it would inevitably result in its own annihilation. Section 6. Espionage and Intrigue, The Shadow Wars of the KGB and CIA. The Cold War was not only a war of ideologies and armies, but also a war of secrets, fought in the shadows by intelligence agencies like the Soviet KGB and the American CIA. These clandestine organizations were engaged in a high-stakes game of espionage, where information was the most valuable currency, and deception was a way of life. These agencies played a critical role in shaping the course of the Cold War, gathering intelligence, conducting covert operations, and engaging in a constant battle of wits. Their operatives used an array of sophisticated tools and gadgets, from hidden cameras to encrypted communication devices, to outmaneuver each other. The KGB, the Soviet Union's primary security agency, was a formidable organization with vast resources and a ruthless reputation. It was known for its efficiency and its ability to instill fear, both within the Soviet Union and abroad. The KGB was responsible for internal security, foreign intelligence, and the suppression of dissent within the Soviet Union and its satellite states. Its reach extended far beyond the borders of the USSR, influencing political events in various countries. Its agents infiltrated Western governments, stole technological secrets, and carried out assassinations of Soviet defectors and other perceived enemies of the state. The KGB's operations were often shrouded in mystery, adding to its fearsome reputation. The CIA, the United States' primary intelligence agency, was tasked with gathering intelligence on foreign threats, conducting covert operations, and providing analysis to U.S. policymakers. It was a key player in the global struggle against communism. The CIA played a crucial role in countering Soviet influence during the Cold War, supporting anti-communist regimes, and conducting covert operations in countries like Cuba, Chile, and Afghanistan. These operations were often controversial and had long-lasting impacts on the regions involved. The rivalry between the KGB and the CIA was a constant feature of the Cold War, a shadow war fought in the shadows that shaped the destinies of nations. This clandestine conflict influenced global politics, often tipping the scales in favor of one superpower or the other, and leaving a legacy that continues to be felt today.